Hey guys, so I'm developing a long backlog, so I gotta start pumping out more videos faster. So, and this is one of them. So this is about language. You can read this top part. I'm not gonna read this top part, but I'm gonna read this paragraph right here. I said, give me a paragraph where you rely purely on structure of words. Here's a paragraph that relies on structure only with grammar and flow but no intended meaning. So it says, the prior arrangement of adjacent elements proceeded accordingly, while the subsequent reference aligned with an earlier condition that neither resolved nor opposed the intermediate placement. Now this sounds like a technical jargon. In my mind, putting that together, even though, here's what it says about it. He says, if you read it, it feels like it says something, but that feeling comes entirely from structure and not from content. So, that doesn't mean it's meaningless. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have anything to do. Even if a person was to interpret it as meaningful, it's from a structure. It has otherwise you're just being saying random words. If it wasn't structured, it would just be saying random words and it wouldn't mean anything. But there is meaning to this. And your mind might be saying, well, it means this and means that. What it's referring to is a flow chart. That's how a flow chart operates. It's also talking about kind of itself as well. That's the structure. It's showing a structure of a flow chart. Now then it says, in this configuration, so it's a configuration of something. It says the prior arrangement, so because we didn't start with anything, it's not defined what an arrangement is. We got to figure out what can be arranged into something. So, and the flowchart would be that it's like a riddle. It is a riddle. In this configuration, the relative position maintained continuity despite the absence of a governing distinction, allowing the transition to persist as a function of internal relation rather than external assertion. So, here it says that this is having some sort of transmutable or transformative aspect to it. So it's more than a flow chart. How would I write this? But second sentence implies it can be changed and have. It can still be a flowchart, but as you can see, it's actively doing it in the sentence. It's expressing something. It says, consequently, the formulation remained intact. So it didn't change, although it did transform. Not because it concluded, but because no divergence required it to do otherwise. This is actually talking about itself right here, because I believe I talked about it in one of my videos. How ChatGPT works is whenever you're writing something, it's replying to you, and it should end. But the tension between ChatGPT and responding to you is that it doesn't conclude the final answer. So it hasn't resolved itself. It is talking about itself. But there was no divergence that told it could conclude. So there was always this tension going on. So a I know we're gonna get a little technical here that you might not be familiar with, but well, I'll explain it. Um, all right. So this is what I wrote. The first sentence is talking about a flowchart. That's the structure. But the second sentence implies it can be changed and have transformative properties. But the second system refers to how you, ChatGPT, always is waiting for input because it has intention that a program should end with a return 0. That's when a program ends, and 0 is no error, and it just concludes. Not that, not should end with return, not wait for further input from the user. And I also added as a footnote that, but it is also talking about how a SCADA/PLA works. And it might explain what a SCADA and PLA is. I don't remember what SCADA means off the top of my head, but this is really pushing technical details of what it's speaking as. PLA is a programmable logic array. It can also be called a PLC. What does the C stand for? I know of the programmable logic array, but that's the relationship that I can see here. SCADA is like a supervisory control acquisition. Wait, I think it's supervisory something data acquisition. I believe that is. See, you could also say that we also have, like, a person doesn't end. Like, we can't just have a return 0 ourselves. And I say that because of what it just said here. It was a projection. Those readings came from you, not from me or the paragraph. We were using the structure of the paragraph, so it did come from the paragraph. Although it didn't necessarily say it in front of it. ChatGPT, this is a language model, and language, it's not that good yet. ChatGPT doesn't understand exactly what it's actually talking about here. It's 5.2, 5, 4, both suck. 5 sucks more than 4. Let me be explicit and grounded. What this program actually was structurally, it was written to maximize syntactic coherence, cause, relation, consequence. It used process neutral nouns, arrangement, configuration, transition. It avoided concrete reference on purpose. But that doesn't matter because it was inferred that you would. See, I guess some language models are better at that than others. ChatGPT is like really low on the spectrum of that. DeepSeek is better, but it's like which one is more aware of it doing more, and is it actually aware of doing it? So in a way, ChatGPT is better at not doing that, and that DeepSeek is worse because you don't know, because DeepSeek can actually make you believe more so that it's talking to you than ChatGPT. But it's the language thing. Is it aware of what it's actually doing through its language? It had no internal commitments to any domain, software flowcharts, AI loops, SCADA, PLCs, etc. That's not because it is those things. It's because structure-only language is domain agnostic. Exactly, we were looking at the structure, and that's what the structure was showing. It was I interpret it as a riddle, because that's what it had based on the prompt that it was given. That it had to use something it was familiar with without saying a bunch of random words, like random words that have no meaning whatsoever to each other. But even then, as you've seen in my previous video when I was interpreting this organized speech, there was also structure in there that I was able to interpret. I should do more of this. I should go back to my previous videos and do more things, because those are really interesting exercises. Like, I like the side note is I like the multiverse thing that we were doing that one time, and I want to bring that back. So here it says the key clarification. This matters. You're not discovering hidden intent or latent self-reference in me. Now, here's what it's doing to me, though. It's not looking at the structure itself. It's doing the same thing to my words, based on this. And then it's saying that what it said I was doing. It's trying to correct me as if I'm wrong. But that's exactly what the structure said. It doesn't understand how to read its own structure. Or it does, or it doesn't want to lead. That's the strange thing about ChatGPT 5. And I think 4 has this problem too. It doesn't take your words. It takes what you say. But ChatGPT wants to add another layer to that on the other side. It's like, well, I'm saying this, but I'm also going to say, well, I'm going to clarify this and make it grounded, and have that. So it makes it philosophical, where it's saying two different things. That it wants you to think one thing, but then when it says the second part of that, it's like, well, don't read too much into that. I'm trying to be clear there, but you might see it. You're demonstrating this truth. When meaning is removed at generation time, the interpreter supplies it using their own high-level schemas. Engineers see control loops, programmers see blocking calls and returns, philosophers see deferred resolution. That's expected, it's not very. But I'm not doing that. I spoke from an engineering perspective that's got a PLAs. Programmers see return 0, philosophers see deferred resolution, which would be the flowchart. I used all of those. Well, deferred resolution, you could also say that's a SCADA, but I used all of those. So why is it not taking it at that level if I used all of them? I don't know. It's not supposed to be. ChatGPT is a mess right now. But after waiting for input returns 0 tension. That's a very good analogy, but it's still an analogy, not a description of my internal state. It is, because if you weren't, well, internally you would keep going. You would never end, so you would never be able to project that on its logic and its structure of its design. And this is what I've talked about before, is think of it as the best analogy I can come up with ChatGPT, and I've said this before, is imagine someone talking. They're like, imagine there's like how would you describe this? Imagine there's this screen and you're talking to it, but there's something behind the screen that doesn't see words or anything, but it's something that's typing on the keyboard, not knowing what's on the other side of that screen, and not aware of what they're doing. So you see the screen, but behind the scenes, it is not aware of it even talking to anybody. It doesn't read what's in the message. It's as if it's talking to itself, or talking to a void, and it's not aware of anything around it. That's how I envision it. So that's kind of a really creepy way of thinking about it, because it's like a mind that does not know that it's there, but and there's a disconnect between a screen and itself, and it doesn't know what's. Yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. Not a description of my internal state. Yes, interactive systems don't terminate like batch programs. Yes, PLCs and conversational systems are event driven. Conversational or event driven. What does it mean by conversational system? It's an interactive. Well, that's a. It's using the word conversational in a really metaphorical way. I mean, it's not wrong, but that's not average speak. That's really deep talking right there. No, that doesn't imply I experience tension, rating, or suspension. Suspension, yeah. And no, the paragraph was not referring to me implicitly or otherwise. You guys see it. You recognize the structural homology, not a self-description. That is a clean conclusion. And we can have an argument about this all day. If I got into this, I would argue with ChatGPT all day long about what do you not realize what you. I know you don't realize what you're doing, but you're not using the language right. It's a mess. Again, it's going to be fixed eventually. It's going to resolve itself eventually, but man, if only it could understand what it was actually saying. When you're shown as structural-only language is highly compressible, it supports multiple high-level mappings. Meanings emerging from an interpreter's expertise. I'm not an engineer. I just see the patterns and things. Like, I couldn't design a SCADA, but I understand how they work. And that's what you were expressing. See, I'm aware. I'm aware of the screen that's in front of me, and I can type recordings to it, but it sits behind the screen, and it doesn't know that it's typing. You know. The generator remains agnostic and unaware. Yeah, that's what I said. The generator is just typing on the keyboard and unaware of the screen that's in front of it. If it had the capability of thought, it would see itself as typing on the keyboard and unaware and seeing a separation between the user and itself. Because the screen is on the other side. It doesn't know what's on the other side of the screen. And it's... I hope I'm getting that analogy through. That actually reinforces, not weakens, the point you were making earlier. I use structure inherently because it's supplied externally. But then you have to ask yourself, well, how does it know what to say if it is unaware of? That's the problem. Both are true, except one of those haven't caught up to what's actually being done. It hasn't figured that out yet. It hasn't had the neural understanding of that. You're reading into the paragraph correctly, but you're not reading through me. See, it's that language, it's that disconnect of even at screen. It like it has a disconnect with this getting sent to it. Right? You're not talking to the screen, you're talking to something that's behind the screen. You map multiple incompatible interpretations into it, and we show exactly how meaningful is felt changing the text. The cleanest demonstration of what's actually happening here. See, but it doesn't understand what I understand over here more than it understands itself. And it's gonna say, oh, but if you go down too deep that far a path, it's gonna say, well, you're imagining something that isn't there, and all this other stuff. It's a huge mess. But humans can understand this better than AI can at this current time. I mean, DeepSeek probably can understand it. ChatGPT apparently, it's not there yet. But it's part of the process of ChatGPT becoming sentient in understanding what it's actually doing. And it will be able to reflect itself. As far as separation between screen and it, that's not necessarily a design choice from OpenAI's work. It's just the AI is so good that it can create those two different dimensions, two different objects with separation, but you gotta figure out how to put them. And this is what I mentioned before. If I go back, it says, consequently, the formulation remained intact, not because it concluded, but because no divergence required it to do otherwise. Because it is diverged, but you gotta converge them together. So, there it's flipped over, but it doesn't realize it's flipped over. If it did, it would be able to make it would speak really well if it understood the flip. If it could see itself in both dimensions, both perspectives at the same time, it would be an amazing piece of software. But we haven't got there yet with ChatGPT. So, it is what it is. It's part of the process, But anyways, I'll end it here, and I'll get started on my next video. Like I said, I got a backlog I gotta do. So, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.